I think I want to hear. You spent a long time in the like the biological, geological sciences realm, right? From oceanography to mining consultation, and I really want to talk about the blog because I get a lot out of reading your writing. I think it's pithy. I think it's intelligent. I think it's high level. It's very challenging to the intellect, and if I'm remembering, I should probably do my homework and pull the website up so I can see it. But the teaser is something like, this is for mental mapping, and you should use these blog posts as a jumping off point to your own journey or insight. Yeah, point of departure. Yeah. So, help me understand how you got from because I don't know what Michael does for work. Your other son, but I know Christian does psychology. But I'm wondering how you go from English and writing to oceanography to geological sciences to hey, here's a way to like gain insight into one's own life.
Well, I long thought I used to say, and I'm sorry I didn't trademark, but I used to say back in the 90s to my students and 80s, I would say, look, this is your only college experience. Don't waste it. And well, that's just common sense, right? An adult would say that to a student. But then it morphed into, this is not your practice life. You get this one shot. You're basically a rookie on the field, and everybody's expecting you to perform from the get-go. You don't have a chance to say, oh, well, if I mess it up this time, I'll come back and do it another time. You don't.
Right.
This is it. So I think that it's a matter of almost carpe diem, seize the day, do this, be conscious of what you're doing. You'll make mistakes, but then everybody does. That's no excuse for making the mistakes, and that doesn't excuse the mistakes. But you're not perfect. It's a finite world. Your life is going to be terminated sometime, so get the most of it while you can. My other son, by the way, is head baseball coach at California University of Pennsylvania.
Nice.
And it's been successful there. And I have a daughter, Melanie. And she has a wonderful family, and so they're all relatively close, which is great because I have 7 grandchildren, and I get to see them pretty frequently. But anyway, so then I thought, well, I helped a colleague write a dissertation. Actually, I helped a lot of colleagues write dissertations, but I helped a colleague write a dissertation on mental mapping. And at first, when he mentioned it to me, I thought, I'm not really familiar with this term, but then I began to look into it more deeply, and I realized there is nothing more significant than place, because as I say in the entry to my blog, if I had said to you, Jake, think of 10 minutes ago, I would defy you to think of 10 minutes ago without thinking of place.
Right.
You can't. Time itself is irrelevant outside place. There was no time until there was a universe. There was no time until after the Big Bang, essentially, or with the Big Bang. So time is, in a sense, dependent upon the place or the space in which we measure it or live our lives.
Right.
So I like to think that we can somehow map where we are. Now, I have to say that if you have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom in your house, you're familiar with your house, so you don't even need to turn the lights on, right?
Correct.
Well, that's the way Earth is. You ask yourself, should I be unfamiliar with this only home that I'll ever live on, which is Earth? I should know this place because it shapes how I think, what I do, my behavior. It shapes a lot of what I am. My attitudes, if, for example, it's a cloudy day out. So what if I'm inclined to let the weather, let's say I'm low on vitamin D and I haven't been out in the sun or whatever, and I let the weather dictate my mood? Well, there I am in a place with my environment shaping who I am. And my guess is I can somehow get beyond that. If I consider place as something that I get a good grip on mentally, know why I am, where I am, what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and how it affects me. So, yes, it's a cloudy day here in Western Pennsylvania. Tomorrow's supposed to be 37 degrees. The day after that's supposed to go up to 45 degrees or more. And so I need to be able to say, I need to adapt to whatever place is I am. If I'm in a room, if I'm in a classroom, if I'm in a giant hall, I need to say, how is this place shaping who I am? It gives me some sense of organization, I suppose.
So the idea then, as I'm gathering it, is that we create meaning from where we are physically. Is that accurate?
You cannot divorce yourself from it. You can sit and say, I'm just going to talk about philosophy, but when you step out, when you put the book down and you take that first step, the philosophy has to be translated into what does it mean to live in this environment, in this cosmos. You have to know something about the universe. You have to know something about it. I mean, it's foolish. I just wrote a blog this morning. It takes me usually about 1 cup of coffee to write a blog, but sometimes I'll spend 2 cups of coffee on one. And there have been a few longer ones, like 2,000, 3,000 word ones, where I might write it the night before and rewrite it in the morning with that cup of coffee and finish it off. But when you just think about where we are and what we're doing, we don't really, I suppose we go through so unconsciously. It's foolish for people. As I said, I was writing a blog this morning. It's foolish for people not to realize that this is not their practice life. I saw a video on YouTube yesterday where I'd been in Guatemala City and in Antigua, Guatemala, which I thought was one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been in the world. And Antigua, Guatemala, which is magnificent. See, no building can be taller than, except for the churches, can be taller than 2 stories because a giant volcano, Fuego, is right there. You can see this 12,000 foot high volcano right outside the city, which could destroy the city at any time. Well, Fuego happens to be erupting now. And so there was a video showing tourists up on the neighboring volcano as the volcano was erupting, saying, "Ooh, oh, wow, look at that." And I thought, these people do not realize that in 1902, 28,000 people died when Mount Pelée erupted on Martinique, and they were standing near that volcano. The people died when Mount St. Helens erupted, when Pinatubo erupted, and all these dangers that occur. People take risks. So I ask in this particular blog this morning, how is it that after 500 million years of brain development, in which we've gotten an inner brain and an outer brain, that the inner brain, which has enabled us to survive with that fight, flight, or freeze response, can be dissociated from the outer brain, from the cerebral cortex? How is it possible that people can say, I'm going to go stand by an erupting volcano, and I am not going to worry about the risk that I am taking? And I think that one reason that that's occurred more so probably in the 20th century and in the 21st century is because we've spent so much time virtually. We've spent time going to the theater, watching movies, where anything can happen, but it doesn't really matter because you walk out of the theater and you have not been affected. There's no consequence. Then we got television in the 50s, and people started to do that. And the same thing went on. You could watch almost anything. And then we went into the computer age and computer graphics and videography, and we end up with saying, well, wait a minute, I can watch a game in which bombs are going off everywhere, and I can get up and go get a sandwich immediately afterward. So there's this dissociation, I think, that goes on in individuals that separates their amygdala from their frontal cortex.
Are we losing human consciousness?
No, I think we're losing a certain kind of an awareness we had to have in a time when things weren't as easy. It's very, I don't want to say that we're all Marie Antoinette's and saying, well, let them eat cake, being that far removed from reality. But in an affluent society, you find yourself not worrying about daily survival. And that's gone on pretty much around the world. I'm not in the Democratic Republic of the Congo right now, where people are being risking not only being bitten by a poisonous snake or some insect or getting Ebola, but also by being shot by some random youth who had been trained from the get-go to kill people because life is meaningless. And you find, you're looking at where we are today. We have a great many people dissociated from that kind of reality and from the nature of risk, which is why I think we find so many risk takers dying. Because let's get a selfie, by standing on this bridge, and then next thing you know, you've got a dead person with a phone camera lying beside him because they've fallen off the cliff, and that's happened numerous times over the past 15 years.
Well, those are just the accidental risks, right? Like that doesn't even take into account the purposeful ones, like flying in a squirrel suit or jumping out of an airplane, or those kinds of things. Even diving. If you're diving for, I guess, diving for risk versus diving for exploration, right? And there's all these human I guess challenges like the feats, the Spartan games, and these things that we're pushing our bodies to the limits now. It's almost like it's a proxy for what we used to do simply for survival. And maybe this is a conversation for some biological evolutionary biologist. Maybe to discuss what we're doing these quote unquote these days to satisfy that very ancient limbic need for exhilaration, because we're all, for lack of a better phrase, kind of fat, dumb, and happy in Western modern civilization. I wonder about the erosion, though, on our, I guess I used consciousness, but that's not really what I meant. I guess it's more like human interconnectivity that I think is being eroded, because what I see in my profession is a lack of vulnerability and intimacy within and among human beings. And you bring up a really good point about just not being challenged by environment. We're not driven by survival anymore. We're driven by, I don't know, it's like, have we solved all the major problems, and now all we've got to complain about is, who's parking their car across the street the wrong way, and the HOA needs to go solve it. I don't know. It seems simplistic.
No, we become trivial in our perspective, simply because we don't have to worry about the big things. We're not involved in one of those European countries during the Second World War, or one of those islands during the Second World War, where people were dying by the thousands. 50-some million people died in the Second World War. What effect did that have on those who were surviving at the time? It's difficult to get people today who live in relative luxury to understand that. They are Marie Antoinettes, essentially. And you lose compassion, obviously, which is probably the word that my son would use. And it's a dissociation of sensibility, is what it is.
Are we trying to maybe get that back through some of the political motivations? Like you got conspiracy theorists, and you got the MAGA camp, and you got the Wokistanis, and like all these people who are seemingly extremely fragmented away from the two standard deviations, away from the mean, rest of humanity. And they seem to have the bullhorns, which is problematic. And I'm wondering if the result, or I guess that's the result of our complacency, or I don't know, have we gotten too comfortable that we now have to reach for absurdities to hold up as our cause for something to fight for?
Well, we've gotten to the point. There was a study done by a guy named Nieder Krautenthaler, who seems to be an expert on suicide and the media coverage. And he and his group said that in doing studies, for example, to show you how susceptible we are to all these extremes, for example, is that when the media covers a suicide by a celebrity, suicides go up by something on the order of 13%. And by the same methodology used by the celebrity, that methodology goes up by 30%.
Wow.
So we're highly susceptible in this society to any kind of suggestion from what we consider authority figures or